What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about what it has been like owning this tank for the past 3 months. Cue the intro. So essentially, this is a 40-gallon breeder rimmed aquarium that I purchased used for, I believe it was around $60. You can get those cheaper if you catch the dollar per gallon sale and get one brand new, or you can be like me and get my other used 40-gallon breeder that I received for $20. This tank is drilled. I know you can see right through the back. It's drilled with and plumbed with 1-inch drains and 3/4 inch return, powered by a J-Bow 8000 DCT return pump. So I just want to go over what it has been like just getting into the hobby in general, and getting to the point where I feel like I can actually talk about reef tanks with a lot of certainty and a lot of confidence. That being said, there are a lot of things that I don't know about reef tanks. I just learned a couple things today, matter of fact, from some very popular YouTubers, and I just want to let you guys know, if you're a beginner, that you should not be scared to enter this hobby. So when I started this tank, I was doing an internship over at Ecotech, and I pretty much did a ton of research, hours and hours and hours of research prior to doing this. And the reason for that is because I wanted to do it as cheaply as possible and document that, so that I can show you guys that you really don't have to spend $1,000 out of pocket buying a really nice tank. Now, that being said, you will have to do that when you kind of get tired of this, but if you are perfectly content with something like this, then you really are fine. So like I said, it is plumbed with 1-inch drains, dual 1-inch drains, and 1 3/4 inch main return down the center. I am using dry rock. It's not really seeded with any coralline algae. It's just regular rock, regular dry rock that I cured with a bleach solution for a couple of weeks, and then I let it soak in some fresh RDI water for a couple of weeks and drained it out, and definitely dechlorinated it and stuff like that. And then I put it in my tank. I let my tank cycle for a couple of weeks. This is the second scape. This is a Reefscape. Before that, I had a separate scape, kind of just more centered and not as low. Some of the rocks were a little bit higher to the top, but I rescaped the tank just because I was kind of getting tired of it, and I really needed some more placement for coral, and I wanted to optimize the main space of the tank. So I did this rescape and I planned it out. I knew I wanted some SPS, branching SPS. I knew I wanted some encrusting SPS, and I also obviously love my LPS. And I just, kind of had some room for some oddities and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I ended up with this scape. So like most reefers, I started off this tank with just fish. I knew I wasn't prepared for any coral. I did have a Radion, and I did end up getting a J-Bow PP8 and then a PP4 wave maker. And I knew then that I was able to keep fish. Now, that being said, I did lose fish. I didn't quarantine. I battled the ick. I didn't get healthy fish. There was a really big learning process. I had fish jump, all that stuff, all that beginner's novice issues that you hear of people experiencing. I did go through that. At one point I battled a little bit of hair algae, but I was able to rectify that pretty readily. But just all I'm saying is, don't be scared to join this hobby, because we all have been through these issues, losing fish. There's advanced reefers that lose fish, and advanced hobby is that I lose fish all the time. I've had fish jump, I've lost fish to ick. But once you learn, I've learned to deal with ick, I've learned to quarantine, I've learned to not quarantine, and how to avoid ick still. And you know, I've learned a lot of things in my short 6 to 8 months. That's one thing. Once you get into it, you kind of get in it and start running. You start learning really quickly, and you know, there are a lot of people out there, a lot of forums out there that can help you out. Don't forget, just don't be scared to ask questions, and don't be scared of doing stuff wrong, because chances are we've all done it already. That being said, I then knew I wanted to get into coral. I started off with the basics. I got some zoas. Actually, these zoas you see right here were my first zoas on one of my first coral. And I essentially just kept, you know, working my way up to stuff. Started with a lot of LPS with my local fish store, and had a lot of Euphilia. Euphilia is probably my favorite coral, and then second to Euphilia would be my Montiporas. But I started off with a lot of Euphilias. I worked on that a lot. I ended up setting up 2 other tanks after this, and just really trying to learn what it took to get things going. Now this tank is filtered with a sump. This is a DIY sump that I built out of a 20-gallon long aquarium. It's set up where the refugium was on the right. You can see I have my 2 grow lights mounted there. My ATO line is right here. My return in the middle, and on the left side I have my mechanical filtration as well as my skimmer and a canister filter, which is going to be replaced with a reactor. So I'm just going to talk about the initial setup of the tank. Try to ignore this thing right here. That'll be in a later video. But the reason I set this tank up the way I did is because I wanted the refugium to get completely unskimmed water to really grow out my algae. And did it work? It worked phenomenally. I had no real issues with that. And then on the left was my skimmed and mechanically filtered water, and the mixture of it does really well. Now I can always do something about this, either run this straight over to my mechanical filtration and do something like that, but I really like how it's set up, and I'm going to keep it that way. If you plan on setting up a reef tank, I highly recommend you trying to set one up with a sump. I find it invaluable, the ability to change equipment, add equipment, increase your algae production, decrease your algae production. It also allows for an ability to kind of increase your biological filtration by adding, you know, some bio blocks or something like that that will allow more bacteria to grow. It allows for microfauna and flora that's gonna help feed your main tank, your corals, your sifters, you know, your invertebrates and stuff like that. So I find it very important to have a sump. However, it is definitely not necessary. Plenty of successful reef tanks in all-in-one tanks, but if you look, you'll find majority of really advanced reefers utilizing a sump for these reasons. Now, that being said, I also have moved while I've had this tank. I've gone through all types of stuff, power outages. You can check back at some of my videos. I've gone through power outages, multiple of them this past year, and I also moved. So, you know, you can see that, you know, if you're worrying about those things being an issue, as long as you take preventative steps to rectify those problems readily and quickly, then you will not have any issues. As you can see, you will lose stuff here and there, but that's just the nature of the hobby. The good thing about it, there's a lot of support. You can always ask for help. Usually there's someone with something nearby that may be able to assist you if you're part of the forums or you're part of a club or something like that. The first couple months of keeping an aquarium, any aquarium, is most likely gonna be you worrying about maintaining the safety and health of your fish. I will say, when it comes to saltwater aquariums, a lid is absolutely required. The majority of these fish will jump. If they get startled, they will jump. If they get stressed, they will jump. So definitely look into getting a lid for your aquarium right off the bat. Don't wait, don't take any chances. Take it from me. Quarantine. Quarantining is absolutely necessary when you're first starting off an aquarium and you know nothing about treating fish. Absolutely necessary. Quarantine your fish because you're not able to tell a healthy versus a sick fish right away. Trust me, I bought a falco hawk that I thought looked wonderful. After a couple days of it not eating, I saw that it was highly emaciated and that it was never eating in the store regardless of what they said to me. So it's things like that that you really need to watch out for, and that will really help you become a better aquarist and reefer. So moving forward a couple months, when you get into coral, you're gonna keep coral and you're gonna go with the water change method, and I still do water changes. I'm actually making water right now for a water change, and definitely I am a fan of water changes. However, it is a lot of work. So you're gonna be doing water changes and your coral are gonna do fine, but you're gonna be looking into ways to definitely speed up that growth after a couple of months of not seeing a lot of growth out of some of your corals that should be growing at a pretty quick rate. And that's when you get into where I am now. You're gonna start focusing on dosing. I am running a J-Bow DP4 and I am dosing Aquaforce component, all three of them. And once that's set up, then you're going to start looking into water chemistry. And I am definitely a big supporter for water chemistry now that I started doing it. I purchased a couple of Hannah checkers and definitely want to do that, because as you can see, I was losing some of my bird's nest back here and I could not figure out what it was. I knew everything else was doing really well, and then I knew that I definitely probably had high phosphate, so I purchased a phosphate checker to try and test my water, and found out that my phosphate was 6 times the maximum limit. So definitely you're gonna want to look into stuff like that when you're about 6, 7, 8 months in the hobby and you're trying to keep coral and have them thrive and grow. But that's pretty much it. This stuff is easy. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work, and you're gonna have to work at it and learn a lot on the way and do a lot of research. But other than that, I don't see any reason why anyone can't set up a reef tank or is scared to set up a reef tank, because there's nothing to fear. You know, there's a lot of people that have made the same mistakes that you will make. So just do a lot of research, and if you're not sure about something, look it up, ask, and I'm sure someone has an answer for you. So thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you guys for watching the video. Have a good one.